We are worldwide live from Feasterville, Bucks County, Pennsylvania for day 2 of your 2015 East Coast Derby Extravaganza presented by your Philly Roller Derby. I am Vince Hannity, joined by Danglevitz and our ever-capable producer Ryan Will. Dan, we are international for this next game on track number 2 as we have the new skids on the block from Montreal Roller Derby, currently ranked number 19, taking on the Stockholm All-Stars of Stockholm Roller Derby, currently going into this weekend ranked number 31st, but clearly rising with a bullet at this point.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. For those of you who didn't see the action yesterday against Detroit, you will have missed out on Stockholm winning 259 to 162. Just worth bearing in mind, Detroit ranked 17th coming into this one, so a couple of points even ahead of the 19th of Montreal. Let's get things started by quickly running down these rosters though. Skating for Stockholm, we have Polygamy Winehouse 00, Carolyn Thunder 03, Eva Lisa 100, Cracker 131, Panica de Hex number 16, Mount Everest number 18, Mad Maloney 22, Domino Effect 455, Best Served Cold 50, Test the Mess 67, Becky Lawless number 8, Lil Slinky 87, Blow Me 91, and Quadditch 934.
For your new skids on the block in the black jerseys with the neon accents will include number 0, Oh Hi, 1214, Salvador Brawley, 123, Miracle Whips, 1917, Russian Coolette, number 1X, Mange-Moi et Cool, number 289, Cheese Grater, 303, Konnichiwa, 33, Demand a Lashing, number 35, Scores Easy, number 420, Meliwana, number 658, Surgical Strike, number 66, Falcon Punch, number 8, Jess Bandit, and number 8612, Cosmic Bruise.
So with just under a minute left to go before we get into the action, it's worth talking about a bit of the history behind this one so far, at least for this year. Stockholm, after yesterday's victory, coming in on a 13-win streak that started last July, in July 2014. Montreal this season, not quite as lucky, 6-1. They've had one loss, which was against number 22, Terminal City, at the Big O earlier this year. Vince?
The only loss that Montreal has ever suffered to another Canadian team, and only by a mere 5 points.
Yeah, they're definitely a competitive team at the top of the game in their country. Stockholm obviously able to claim exactly the same for Sweden. We are looking at two teams with a lot to prove out here today.
We're about 15 seconds from getting underway for period 1, jam number 1 on the track. Jamming for the new skids on the block is number 420, Meliwana, up against number 22 for Stockholm, Mad Maloney. Blockers on the track include for Montreal, Salvador Brawley, Russian Coolette, Scores Easy, and Konnichiwa, a transfer from Windy City at pivot. And for Stockholm, it'll be Carolyn Thunder, Eva Liza, Mount Everest, and your pivot Domino Effect. Montreal will go ahead, take the triangle, or excuse me, Stockholm will take the triangle up front. Montreal taking the real estate modified triangle in the back. Meliwan on the inside lane, Mandaluni outside, going inside lane, up against the triangle, finds that lane, return number 1, number 2, Dan, gets the lead jammer call.
Yeah, but hotly followed as well there by Mad Maloney, able to make her way through. Mad Maloney yesterday, a real swing factor in Stockholm's game against Detroit, proving once again her worth, forcing the call, 0-0 on that one.
And I believe that was Domino Effect on the outside lane with that defense forcing the call as we wait for the scores to get updated, and I believe it's going to be blanked all around, so comes out in the wash. We'll set up with jam number 2. This will set up for Montreal with number 66, Falcon Punch. Also joined, I believe, for, if I can see correctly, that's going to be Lil Slinky. And I know, Dan, you were talking about with the previous game last night against Detroit, Lil Slinky had quite a performance at jammer for Stockholm.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. She was second only to Mad Maloney in terms of the score, and proving why right there. Breaks on through that inside line, same way again, picks up lead.
And one blocker for Stockholm holding the inside lane, and Montreal trying to go outside, but did she get clear in time? No, she does not. It is a track cut and power jam for Stockholm, as that'll be Falcon Punch reporting for the first jammer penalty of the game.
Yeah, our first power jam, a chance now to see how Stockholm make their way around this one. Yesterday, Stockholm very much played slow and steady on the power jams. They were happy just to take what they could get and play it safe. It worked out exceptionally well for them. And today, looks like the same. A little bit of offense, carefully timed, gets them what they need.
Nice move by that Stockholm pack, clearing out the inside lane. Only one Montreal blocker able to even get a body in on Little Slinky. She completes the first scoring pass. Goes to engage outside straightaway on the second pass, straightaway number 2. Montreal shifting one blocker up front for Stockholm. Now Stockholm bringing the heat with two blockers. Actually shifting back to one blocker and putting that triangle in the rear to slow down Falcon Punch. Montreal doing a pretty good job of holding that diamond inside lanes 1 and 3, coming around to turn number 4. Forearm penalty will go against, it's gonna go against Falcon Punch again. 2 penalties in the same jam.
A real opportunity here for Stockholm to open things up. Exactly what we saw yesterday. They're happy to play this defense that runs left to right all the way, try and frustrate the jammers. A similar style of defense, actually, we're seeing from Montreal here today that we saw from Detroit yesterday. Very physical, jamming up the lanes, doing what they can to stop. But at the moment, Stockholm with the edge.
And Stockholm with that last scoring pass, that lateral movement. First law of the Varda being used greater force against itself, and that lateral movement working to great effect. As with 27 minutes and 20 seconds left in the first period, it'll be Stockholm over Montreal 20-0. And now on the power jam, number 16, Panica de Hex, joined by Corolla Thunder, Dominant Effect, and a 3-wall out there from Montreal. Blockers trying to get that inside lane, water falling up front. Now going up against the triangle, coming into lane number 1. All 4 blockers as Stockholm goes passive. Coming into turn number 1, has to reset and avoid the track cut, courtesy of Meliwana. Now the triangle coming around. Good transitioning by Montreal, not getting those multiplayer blocks by making sure there's no unbreakable links and just going upper arm to upper arm, shoulder to shoulder, despite the very best efforts of Panica de Hex, who will find the outside lane, get clear, and get that call.
And lovely to see as well the full pack of Stockholm going in offensively initially, and then great awareness from them to say, now is the time to stop, reform, let's be ready for Montreal's jammer when she comes out.
It's so nice to see a pack play offense and then transition there, isn't it?
It's an incredible skill, I think, actually, for all blockers, and something that you really like to see from these top flight teams.
And before she calls it off, manages to get another player. I believe it's a pivot for Montreal, number 420, Meliwana, sent to the penalty box. Well, it appeared she was going to the penalty box on a multiplayer block, but being waved back on the track, possibly because I believe there's already 2 Montreal blockers in the box. No room in the inn. You have to wait in the stables till we get a bed for you.
That's right. I believe it's Kenichi Wow and Scores Easy already sitting down for Montreal on this one. Again, a similar story at the start to what we saw yesterday against Detroit. Stockholm really taking advantage of the penalties, both on blockers and on jammers.
We'll go ahead and resume. It will be Mad Maloney taking on, I believe it's going to be 86-12 for Montreal. Yes, it is. That's going to be Cosmic Bruise with the star for the New Skids. 3 blockers up front trying to slow down, defend her to center track coming out of turn number 2. Buys enough time for number 22, Mad Maloney. Lead jammer Stockholm. 3 out of 4 lead jammer calls for Stockholm down.
That's right, 3 out of 4, and they were dominant yesterday at a similar ratio right the way through the game. About 3/4 of the calls yesterday against Detroit went to Stockholm. So this really playing out in a very similar way to what we saw yesterday. Interesting to see, especially given that obviously Stockholm already have 1 game under the belt. Stamina might play an issue later on.
Well, we'll see how it breaks down, as already on her second scoring pass is Mad Maloney up against the triangle in turn number 2 for the New Skids. Great bracing, holding the line, and you've got a Stockholm blocker bridging both triangles as 86-12 Cosmic Bruise trying to get around that Stockholm triangle in turn number 2. Meliwana done with her penalty. Team's just about back at full strength now, if I'm not mistaken, but nice defense by Stockholm to 0-0. Polygamy Winehouse taking Cosmic Bruise almost all the way back to turn number 1.
And this is incredible. You're seeing almost literally a mirror match in front and behind on this track. Just coming into your screens on the left now, you can see the triangle braced up at the front of Montreal. We have only got 30 seconds left on this jam. Great play from both teams and almost exactly matching each other bow for bow, Vince.
And Stockholm has already sniffed out the star stash going to the pivot 420 Meliwana. She gets defended back to turn number 2. Star cover is still in hand, so no ability for Montreal to score at this time. In the meantime, Mad Maloney trying to get around turn number 3, get a few more points before the jam expires. About 10 seconds left on the jam clock. Dancing inside, dancing back outside. Hold up by 3 blockers, but I got an offensive blocker, 911. Below me trying to get the lane. The jam will end on 2 minutes.
Wow, what a hard-looking jam. Both jammers having to push up against incredibly well-braced walls. Beautiful defense from both teams, and we're looking at 10 points put on for Stockholm on that one. Nothing going up for Montreal, 34 to Stockholm. Montreal still yet to score, despite the fact we are now at the point where we've had almost 7 minutes of play, Vince.
And Dan, I don't think anyone watching this game was expecting, with almost 7 minutes gone, for Montreal to not even be on the board.
It's Speaking of people watching at home, a shout out through social media to Gemmeroids, who's watching in the UK, tuning in late night over there. If you want to talk to us on hashtag ECDX chat, Vince.
Jam number 5, 123 Miracle Whips jamming for the New Skids up against number 87 Lil Slinky for Stockholm. And that's going to be only the second lead jammer call of the game so far for the New Skids of Montreal. And that's going to be 123 Miracle Whips coming around, coming into turn number 1 for her first scoring pass. Gets defended to center track, re-enters behind the blocker, finds the lane on the inside, gets defended, calls it off, but not before. She's going to rack up, I believe, 4 points for the first Montreal points of the game.
Yeah, absolutely right. 4 points going up for Montreal. They're finally on the board. I mean, it's worth mentioning, despite the fact we've been saying they're still not on the board until this point. It's only a 30-point difference. You know, Stockholm not really able to eke out a massive lead, but certainly looking dominant for the beginning of this game.
But also, I think the fair counterpoint on that one, Dan, is with some of the defense we're seeing these blocking packs do for both Stockholm and Montreal, that every point is in fact going to count what we've got going on here.
I think you're absolutely right. I think this one could be about scrapping your way through 1s, 2s, 3s, and maybe how can you exploit those opportunities when you do get a power jam.
Meliwana and Quadage for Montreal and Stockholm, respectively, with the stars for their team. Packed with a tight double timing formation coming in to turn number 1 from the pivot line. 131 of Stockholm. Cracker sent to the box on a multiplayer block, and Meliwana lead jammer for the New Skids.
And we said we've seen some similarities between this game and the Detroit game of Stockholm yesterday. Now we're seeing some differences. Both teams on 3 lead jammers so far. Of course, Stockholm better able to exploit thus far, but some points going on for Montreal right there.
And great offense played by Russian Croulet, 1917 for Montreal, coming in with the offensive block, springing 3. Meliwana currently working on 5 points on the jam, coming around turn number 2, straightaway number 2. Will get clear, make it the perfect 10 on the jam.
Yes, that's another 10 points going on for Montreal. Exactly the shot in the arm they're looking for. Potentially the beginning of a big swing of momentum. We'll have to wait and see for the next couple of jams. But a star pass having gone on to Polygamy Winehouse for Stockholm.
Coming around, Meliwana quite wisely calls it off. She picks up 4 more points, 14 points total on the jam. And that, I believe, is going to make it the second consecutive jam that Stockholm, after a pretty strong start, has been held scoreless. Dan, what's going on with Stockholm?
Well, I think Stockholm here are one of those teams that really pride themselves on the ability to adjust their play. And one of the consequences of that is when you change up, you take the risk of changing up in the wrong direction. They're making a couple of changes here and there. They're trying to get the most out of the situation. Obviously, one of the risks you run is that sometimes those changes won't work out. Now, we'll see how they adapt it again.
Adaptation is the name of the game for winning teams all weekend long as we go into jam number 7. Miracle Whips for Montreal up against Mad Maloney for Stockholm. 2 yellow jerseys to beat. 4-arm penalty for a Stockholm blocker. Gets Miracle Whips free. 3rd consecutive lead jammer call in a row for Montreal. And a power jam, no less, Dan.
Yeah, that's right. The 4-arm actually went to Mad Maloney, who ended up in the box number 22 for Stockholm, who did so much damage against Detroit yesterday. A real opportunity here for Montreal to get right back into the middle of this game. They start it well. 5 points going up, Vince.
Pack coming into turn number 3. Montreal in the rear. Stockholm with the triangle up front. Montreal brings a blocker. 1 hit, blocker hit, 2 blocker hits. Now a 2-wall. Has to convert to the tractor trailer. And now coming to the outside, dancing on the toe stop, so has to call it off before she can get the track cut. And that will get 3 points for the New Skids and for Miracle Whips, putting Montreal at 26, Stockholm holding at 34.
Some of you may be able to hear in the background as well what sounds like booing coming from the crowd. It's not booing, actually. It's the fans of Mad Maloney who yell "loon" when she's going around. So don't be confused. There's no bad sportsmanship going on here today.
Oh, I thought they were saying boo earns, boo earns. Going into jam number 8 of our first period, it'll be number 66, Falcon Punch for the New Skids up against Panica de Hex, number 16 for the Stockholm All-Stars. Packed with that tight formation, not just barely over the pivot line now. Outside lane, Panica de Hex. Defendant comes in behind the blocker. Stockholm waterfalling up front, can't get the angle. Lead jammer, Montreal.
And it certainly seems like Montreal are winning the battle to adapt here. Currently up 5 lead jammer calls for them. Only 3 for Stockholm so far after a very strong start. And there's some more points going up for Montreal. It looks like Montreal might have Stockholm's number.
Nice 1-2 step move to the outside and then gone. Pack holding and straightaway number 2. As Falcon Punch engages the outside, goes outside again, but doesn't catch it in time. That will be a track cut penalty for Falcon Punch. And that will make it power jam Stockholm and number 16, Panica de Hex.
Oh, but number 16, Panic at the Hex, actually going off the track now, skating around. The star having been dropped to the floor, being thrown off by Polygamy Winehouse off the track. So the star is lying just off the track, just above where you can see in the center of your screens. You might just be able to pick it out. We're going to wait and see what happens at the end of this one, but it's going to go for the last 50 seconds, Vince. That's a fact.
Well, I'm kind of curious as to what the strategy was for Stockholm at that point, because I believe with the rules since about 2014 for the star passes, it must be a hand-to-hand transfer from the jammer to the pivot. It can no longer be dropped on the track for the pivot to pick up. Panic at the Hex, now done with the penalty, does exactly that, picks up the cover. It's in hand. It's the star stash coming around turn number 4, trying to set up what appears to be the full completed star pass, but Montreal just not having any of that at all.
And whilst we've been talking there, a lead change has occurred, Vince. Montreal now on 36, Stockholm on 34. 2 points the difference. What a game so far.
Phone your friends, phone your family, phone all the Derby fans. Let them know what's going on. And for an out-of-play warning on the pivot, she's got the star cover in hand.
And there it ends after much confusion. And again, the pivot panty being dropped on the floor again. I think Stockholm going to have to take a couple of moments to chill their boots a little bit and figure out exactly what was going on with that. Worth bearing in mind, the jammer that started the jam on for Stockholm, Panic at the Hex, still showing us in the box at the moment. And there's the timeout. I'm not surprised at all to see Stockholm calling the timeout. They may well be asking some questions about that one. Vince, we are here at East Coast Derby Extravaganza 2015, hosted by the Philly Roller Girls. Wow.
And Dan, all 41 of those Montreal points coming in the last 4 jams, a 41-0 run.
Yeah, and a heck of a run given the way that Stockholm came out looking so powerful to begin with. You know, Montreal have been able, we talked earlier on about the fact that Stockholm were a team that prided themselves on their ability to adapt. And it's actually Montreal who have come out and adapted to that Stockholm defense, which did look dominant in the first few jams and have really got their number now, able to run the scoreboard against them. Although, I say that with a hint of caution in my voice, only 7 points the difference at the moment.
Indeed. Going on, you talked earlier about that end of jam number 4 when it was 34-0. Stockholm saying 30 points, not that big a lead, and Montreal saying, Danglebits, you, sir, are exactly correct.
So obviously the action being brought to you this weekend for free. We'd like to say thanks to some people who have helped to make that happen. In particular, Rydell Skates, unmatched quality, unmatched performance. That's Rydell Skates.
Also, while we're about to get back underway, it will remain as a power jam for Montreal. Jam number 9, 420, Meliwana with the star. All 4 blocking for Stockholm, trying to get the diamond coming into turn number 1, but broken down easily. And Meliwana, lead jammer once again, if I'm not mistaken, Dan, 3 for 3 for lead jammer calls so far in this game.
Absolutely right, and not just 3 for 3, but a swing now in favor of Montreal. They now have double the lead jammer calls of Stockholm. Stockholm with only 3, Montreal with 6.
There you go. Stockholm stretching out that pack, but they cannot contain Meliwana. 5 points on the initial scoring pass. And now penalty box empty as pack in straightaway number 2, and a star pass completed to the pivot for Stockholm, going to dominant effect number 455. Meliwana about to complete the second scoring pass and quite wisely calls off the jam before dominant effect can go ahead and engage, but will get another 4 points for a total of 9 on the jam. I believe bringing, yes, Montreal the 50.
Yeah, that's right. Panic at the Hex came out of the box that time, clutching the star, didn't even put it on, went straight round, handed it off. I think that's a smart thing to do. Get the star out of your hands into someone who can get out and blitz it, who still has a bit of energy left.
Coming into jam number 10, it is going to be Miracle Whips from Montreal up against Little Slinky. Can the Little Slinky, everyone knows it's Little Slinky, but can she turn the tide for Stockholm? Now on the long end of a 50-point swing up against Miracle Whips for Montreal.
And look at this slow start, Vince, a little bit different this time. The diamond being locked in by both teams, trying to do their best. Well, I say both teams, actually. The diamond for Montreal has transitioned now into a 3 triangle and 1 sweeper on the inside line.
And what I love what Montreal is doing with its defense and its pack work is they're keeping that lateral shift going on and buys enough time. Miracle Whips lead jammer now running on 6 consecutive lead jammer calls for Montreal.
And sprints around the inside like it ain't no thing. Picks up the full 5 points for the Grand Slam. But just at the end of that, there you can see on your screens, Little Slinky getting out as well for Stockholm.
And Miracle Whips engaging on another scoring pass, goes to the outside, gets defended to the outside track, will call it off. And that's going to be a back block penalty going on, I believe that's 911 below me for Stockholm at the end of that jam. And that 8 points will make it 58-34 advantage Montreal with 14 minutes, 21 seconds and counting left in the first period.
Let's give a shout out to the Gotham Girls Roller Derby Boot Camp. Take your game to the next level with Gotham Girls Boot Camp, July 11th and 12th at Coney Island, New York City. Single day and weekend passes available. Discounts available for 6 or more skaters from the same league. For more information, go to www.gothamgirlsrollerderby.com.
Cosmic Brews jamming for the New Skids up against Mad Maloney for the Stockholm All-Stars. Packing a tight formation to the inside lanes. Now morphing to the outside, coming up the inside lane. Finally, Mad Maloney for Stockholm. First lead jammer call since jam number 4.
Yeah, Stockholm obviously keen to reclaim a bit of momentum. Getting lead jammer is the start of that, but she's really got to get through and put some points on, and they've got to prevent the Montreal jammer from getting out, which they failed to do in this point. Cosmic Brews out and around.
Cosmic Brews turning on the afterburners at this point. Mad Maloney not even going to try any further efforts, just keeping an eye, calling it off into sufficient time. She will go ahead and get 4 points on the jam. First point since jam number 4 for Stockholm, bringing them to 38. Montreal holds at 58 with about 13 minutes, 15 seconds left in regulation in the first.
And a smart move there, I think, by Mad Maloney to tap her hips and call it right there. It can be really easy when you're a little bit behind, if you feel that pressure, to try and push yourself harder than you need to. In that instance, we've got the points. Let's call it and go home. Smart move from Stockholm.
Yeah, you still got plenty of time left on the clock to come on back on this point. In the meantime, Lil Slinky with the star for Stockholm coming around the outside, but around the outside is going to be Meliwana for a forearm penalty power jam. Stockholm and a lead jammer, number 87, Lil Slinky, as that pack stretches out. In turn number 1 going to turn number 2, now reforming 3-on-3. Now going to be 4-on-3, advantage Stockholm, outside lane, dancing around the toe stops, grand slam, Little Slinky.
Amazing, and we talk about swings of momentum. It feels like this game is going to be exactly that, one way, then the other, and it's going to be about who can exploit it when they've got their moment in the sun, Vince.
And blocking from Montreal, number 658, Surgical Strike, just hanging up Little Slinky in the pack, shifting back and forth, looking like she's the woman in control, but dancing around the outside in those toe stops, but defended by the pivot, number 33, Amanda Lashley, but still upright for another grand slam, number 87, Little Slinky.
That style of skating, almost poetic, the way you see that going on. It's beautiful to watch that kind of skill, and it's been on display from both teams here today. Vince.
Certainly not afraid of getting physical, whether you're wearing a star, whether you're wearing a stripe, or you have no helmet cover. Meliwana done with her penalty. Montreal taking the reverse bridge to nowhere, back to turn number 2. And Little Slinky says the damage done, let's call it off. We've got the 14 points on the jam and made this only a 6-point game with 11 minutes, 37 seconds left of the period.
And the swing, the pendulum swings on back. That's the way this is going to go. I can just feel it in my bones, Vince. We're going to see back and forth, and let me tell you, that is my favorite type of roller derby to see. You're seeing it here on WFTDA.tv at East Coast Derby Extravaganza, hosted by Philly Roller Derby.
Derby fans, I hope you didn't make any plans for any time soon, because frankly, I think you should be sitting down watching this game if the first 19 minutes have been any indication. This time, Miracle Whips with the star from Montreal up against Mad Maloney for Stockholm. Pack holding shortly in front of the jammer line, shifting around, not giving those jammers so much as an inch to move. Jammers playing follow the leader, but still getting closed up on the holes. Out lane for the outside, but sniffed out by Montreal, defended. Now going to the inside. In the meantime, Miracle Whip's doing her own lateral movement, but nice defensive work and lateral movement by the Stockholm blockers coming out of turn number 2. And coming the outside, that's going to be Miracle Whip's lead jammer, Montreal.
And that took almost 40 seconds to get a lead jammer out there. And something we're seeing increasingly is when two diamonds collide and you see that one diamond maintains its cohesion, the other has to part. And so often, it's the one that maintains its cohesion that gets the advantage.
And up the inside lane, Miracle Whips gets clear and will get 5 points on the first scoring pass. Pack slowly shifting into turn number 3 from straightaway number 2. 360 on the outside by Miracle Whips for another grand slam.
Montreal slowly beginning to open up that lead again. So we are now up to a 16-point lead, Vince.
Finally done with the initial pass. Number 22, big block coming out of turn number 4 on Miracle Whips. She will call it off and waiting to see if she's going to get any points with that. I know somebody's going to the box for a low block penalty. That's going to go on the jammer for Montreal.
That's right. If the blocker seemed to have established position, the blocker fell as a result of the contact with the jammer who was taking the leap. So she will go and sit down. This one will be a power jam start in favor of Stockholm. And with a lead that's as small as the one that Montreal have right now, that's exactly what Montreal didn't want to see.
And again, it's not intent, it's impact and up the inside lane, but a back block penalty on Lil Slinky.
Oh my goodness, change around, change around, change around, Vince. This one's going to be tight.
For any fans watching WFTDA TV in this game who may have anxiety problems, I hope you took your Xanax and then some, because this is going to be a wild one. Up the inside lane, Miracle Whip's done with her penalty, courtesy of the back block, executed by Little Slinky for Stockholm. Lead jammer given to Miracle Whips for the box. Also, Little Slinky done with her penalty and done with her initial pass. Outside lane, gets partway, calls it off, but she's going to get a penalty for skating out of bounds. So now power jam, Little Slinky in Stockholm.
Good grief, another power jam being given away. This is crazy watching, Vince. Now we're looking at Stockholm with an opportunity to try and close this gap up. This gap has never been more open than a maximum of 30 points all the way through this game so far.
Indeed, 34 points, the biggest lead we've seen in this game so far. Grand slam, Little Slinky done with that first scoring pass. Now, second scoring pass, now working on 10 points on the jam. I stand corrected.
7 points the differential at the moment, 62 to 69. That's 2 passes, Vince, just 2 passes separating these two teams.
Coming into turn number 2, coming into straightaway number 2, a mix of Montreal and Stockholm blockers. Little Slinky engages Montreal, trying to waterfall on top of her. Stockholm bringing the heat. High block and a forearm penalty will send off at least one Montreal blocker to the box, but doing a great job of defending. Little Slinky back, almost all the way to the beginning of straightaway number 2.
Miracle Whip's back on the track and doing the business up at the front, just coming off the bottom of your screens, but then being recycled back again, but eventually gets the out of play call that she's been looking for.
That pivot number 33, Demanda Lashing of Montreal, gets credit for a huge assist and defending the jammer position on that inside lane going into turn number 3.
Oh, good grief. 8 points still the differential showing on our board. 65 plays 73. Montreal just edging out. Still 7 minutes to play left in the first half, let alone this whole game. 37 minutes still left to go. I don't even know what we're going to see. We've seen everything so far, Vince.
Well, from what we're seeing so far, if past results or any indication of future performance, we're going to see ourselves a damn good derby game as we're going into jam number 15. Falcon Punch from Montreal taking on for Stockholm, number 16, but she's already going to draw a misconduct and report to the box. Power jam, Falcon Punch, Montreal.
Now, I'm not 100% certain, of course. I won't know until we get some clarification, but I believe the misconduct may have been for contact with a referee as she came through the middle.
May have been the case. Regardless, Falcon Punch finds the lane on the inside. Will get clear. Grand slam on the initial scoring pass. Pack now coming out of turn number 2, straightaway number 2. Montreal bringing the heat against that Stockholm triangle, just breaking up any pack that Montreal might have had. Now, possibly a little bit high on the contact up against the pivot domino effect, but manages to reform the triangle, now shift to a modified diamond. Outside lane, gets just enough of it to get her out, coming out of turn number 4 and taking her back to turn number 3.
It's another thing we saw them doing yesterday an awful lot in their game. They put up that 3 wall and send one runner back. It's been very effective because, of course, you establish that defense, but you also get the benefit of a recycle. It's a nice play, Vince.
Now, the only thing I would suggest to Stockholm with that, they need to make sure they keep that spacing correct so they can stretch out things even further and make it more difficult for the opposing jammer on that point. And an illegal procedure for re-entry not at the back of the pack sends number 16, Panic in the Hex, right back to the penalty box.
And Stockholm have got to lock down these penalties if they want to come back into this game. A chance now for Montreal to really open it up. We haven't still seen a bigger lead than 30 points. There's edging towards a 20-point advantage at the moment. So whilst we're talking about that, if you want to see more action, you can tune in next year in point of fact. Let's talk about ECDX 2016. That's happening next year in Philly Roller Derby. We'll be celebrating the 10th year of the East Coast Derby extravaganza. Save yourself the dates. It's going to be in June next year.
Friday, June 17th through Sunday, June 19th. You already know the dates. You have no excuse. Go ahead and put into your boss for the time off as Meliwana putting in for lead jammer on jam number 16 of this game, defended to the inside in turn number 1, forearm penalty, assessed against a Stockholm blocker and the lead jammer, Meliwana in Montreal.
And I believe that is their, due to my unofficial stats, that'll be 11 lead jammer calls in favor of Montreal at the moment. 11 versus only 6 from Stockholm.
Well, regardless of the number is clear. Grand slam on the initial scoring pass for Meliwana as the penalty box empties out almost completely of Stockholm blockers. Outside lane gets clear and will be awarded 4 points on that pass. And now it is a star pass. Penalty cover being put on the helmet of 455, dominant effect coming into turn number 3, but doesn't quite engage the pack in time. No point for Stockholm.
And another pairing that we've seen before there, exactly the same situation. Panic at the Hex starting in the box, domino effect coming out to take the star pass. It's clearly something they've drilled, and it's been effective for them. It's forced the call a couple of times, but they've really got to do more than force the call now to get back into this game. They've got to get themselves some points on the board.
Well, you could do far worse to try and get points on the board than give the star to number 22, Mad Maloney. She will be up against 123 Miracle Whips for the New Skids. Also on the track for Stockholm will be Pivot Mount, Never Rest, Becky Lawless, and just like that, lead jammer, Mad Maloney.
Just dancing around that inside line, showing some real skill. You give her an inch, she will take a mile. Here's the example of that, already coming in to attack the back of this pack now, looking to put some more points up. Edging it out, almost through. Oh, something's gone loose on the floor. It looks like a wheel or a piece of padding. Mad Maloney makes it through, and yes, it will have been part of Mad Maloney's kit. She actually was delayed calling it off there just because she was trying to figure out what was being signaled. The referee was signaling, get off the track. Your kit is no longer safe. You've lost your knee pad.
And great catch of the call. I was concerned for a moment that it was signaling for a penalty. You didn't quite see the penalty signal, but as my colleague, learned colleague correctly points out, that is not a penalty. Report to the penalty box, exit the track for maintenance and equipment improvement.
That's right, and that's exactly why she was still able to call that off from the position she was in as well. So good awareness as well of her to go, oh, I'm not being sent, I can still call it, and call it before the damage is done.
And still, Montreal and Miracle Whips managed to get 3 points at the end of that jam to make it 96-65 with 2 minutes, 23 seconds and counting left in regulation in the first. Lil Slinky with the star for Stockholm up against Meliwana for the New Skids of Montreal. Jam number 18 of this game. Defense, the name of the game. And Meliwana being held up coming around turn number 1, but will find the outside lane and another lead jammer call for the New Skids.
Yeah, you say the defense is the name of the game. You're absolutely right. Defense has been completely key. That said, we have seen some really nice set play offense shown as well, and we'll be looking out for that as the game goes on, Vince.
And Montreal trying to trap the blockers to one side. Stockholm sniffs it out. Meliwana gets part way, calls it off, and points on the board will make it 2 more points for Montreal, putting them at 98. Stockholm holding at 65. A minute, 34 seconds left in regulation. Jam number 19, Montreal 98, Stockholm 65. Falcon Punch with the star for Stockholm. Quadditch with the star, Quadditch with the star for Stockholm. Falcon Punch with the star for Montreal. Good Lord, Dan, this has been a wild one.
It has, and if you're just tuning in, it's worth bearing in mind Stockholm in the yellow, Montreal in the black with the green accents.
And Pack just not giving so much as a centimeter coming off the jammer line. Lateral movement by Stockholm, trying to go midway, joined as well by Falcon Punch. Stockholm says, no, you don't either. And now shifting, taking one blocker to try and get offense while holding the diamond against Falcon Punch. But now that triangle not doing much, and now the bridge blockers for both teams almost going to war against each other at this point.
I mean, it's incredible when you see that kind of lockdown going on. The defense from both teams, absolutely stunning.
And with the pivot from Montreal sent off to the penalty box, now was a 4-3 pack advantage, now 3-3 as one of the Stockholm blockers goes to the box. And we're out of turn number 2 and still no lead jammer yet. But just in the nick of time, Falcon Punch finds just enough on the inside lane, but a forearm penalty and a power jam, start passed by Stockholm. So now our pivot, number 934, no, star stash to Quadditch, the original, excuse me, no, is a star pass to Quadditch. Good Lord.
Hold on there, breathe deep. Quadditch was the jammer at the start of this jam, number 934 for Stockholm. She's star stashed and was able to get out, but she hasn't been called as lead and as a result, she's not lead, but on a power jam. The first 5 points of that power jam having gone up now, Vince.
Well, I believe this rule says that if you take the star cover off midway through, you are ineligible to get lead jammer status and all rights and privileges therein. So the jam must go the full 2 minutes. So barring any shenanigans or tomfoolery, this will be the final jam of the first period. 98-70, Montreal over Stockholm. Jam clock now at 15 seconds. Pat coming around into turn number 1. And Quadditch with that star stash once again, but Montreal not having it at all. Dominant effect being sent to the penalty box for what I believe is at least her 5th penalty box trip.
That's right, actually her 6th penalty box trip at this point.
And jam will end on 2 minutes. And that's going to make it halftime. Montreal, new skids on the block, 98. Stockholm, roller derby all-stars, 70 points. And Danglebits, wow.
Yeah, wow is exactly the word. 28 points, the difference going into halftime. If you have friends at home who are not watching this game, you need to tell them now, and I don't care if it's 3 a.m. where you are, you wake them up and you get them watching this game right now, because we are seeing everything in what will be an absolute humdinger of a second half. 28 points the difference as we go into the half. Vince, thanks very much for tuning in to the East Coast Derby Extravaganza, hosted by Philly Roller Derby, broadcast on WFTDA.tv. We will be back in just over 14 minutes.
Hey everybody, this is Zach here from Rydell Skates, and we're here to talk to you today about an exciting new product we have. This is our Fit footbed kit. It's designed to help alleviate pain and reduce some soreness that people commonly get while skating. First, let's talk about the Fit footbed itself. It's a high-density foam with a soft-top cover on it. It allows for a lot more cushion and support for a safer and more effective skating session. On the back side, there's Velcro components that allow you to attach adjustable arch supports and heel wedges to it, which is really where all the customization comes in. Installed in the footbed is a blue arch support, which is neutral. There's also a red arch support, which is for high arches, and an orange arch support, which is for low arches. Installation and swapping them out is really simple. All you need to do is just peel the